Well, Razorback fans, it was a close game, hard-fought game, but it was still a loss. Is there anything we can take from this? Well, let's talk about it on today's Locked On Razorbacks podcast.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into Locked On Razorbacks podcast. I am your host, John Nabors. I am also the host of Inside Arkansas Live, which you can catch every weekday starting at noon on Inside Arkansas and InsideArkansas.com. This episode is brought to you by Mazda. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, pulling off the unexpected is only the beginning. Stay tuned later for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward. Mazda, move and be moved. Hope everybody's having a wonderful Monday, and hopefully everybody had a wonderful weekend, as we're going to talk a little bit about the coaching situation, and also, of course, get into some things that went around in the SEC, but also in college football in general. It's getting kind of pretty crazy out there. But, of course, I wanted to start with the obvious thing, Arkansas and Tennessee. It was a game that I don't know really anybody that went into this game knowing exactly what was going to happen. And that's what I think makes this game so weird, is because we can sit here and say that, oh, I knew that this team would lose 34-31. I knew they would have self-inflicted wounds and end up costing them the game. But you didn't know that. You didn't know that. No one did. No one knew what Bobby Petrino, as the interim head coach, was going to be able to do in this game. No one knew what the defense was going to look like. No one knew what the motivation of this team was going to be. No one knew. You could have guesses, you could have estimations, you could have predictions, but no one knew. And it's ironic to me that even though none of us knew what was going to happen, what ended up happening is the same thing we've seen. Kind of sucks, doesn't it? 34-31, you lose this game. You lose it to Tennessee. You had to lead in the game. You were tied at halftime. I think everybody was accepting of that. You had a third quarter where you didn't score once again, and Tennessee got up on you by 17. You scored 2 late touchdowns to make it interesting, but it just wasn't enough. It just wasn't enough. Now, we'll get into the stats and just look at the things in the way that people played. Like Taylen Green, he went 21 of 31 for 256 yards, 2 touchdowns. He also rushed for 63 yards and 17 carries and a touchdown. Played really well, except for the fumbles. Had some issues with that. Turned the ball over too much. Arkansas did that in general. Braylon Russell had 8 carries for 47 yards. He was really doing a good job. And he got hit in the game, but then when he got hit, I felt like it could have been targeting, but that's neither here nor there. He got hit with the fumble, and that was really one of the game changers in the third quarter. Arkansas scored 0 points, one of them being with that fumble, and the other one being going for the fourth down play. It just didn't work out there in the second half. Instead of kicking the field goal, which could have made the difference, Bobby Petrino even talked about how much of a pain that was and how much it was a regret of his. But again, we'll talk about Petrino here in a little bit. But Raylan Sharp had a great game. 7 catches for 76 yards, just like we all predicted, right? Omega Blake did great, 5 catches, 65 yards. CJ Brown, 3 catches for 50 yards. Cam Shanks, 3 catches for 44 yards. So really got to see some showcasing of the wide receivers there. The defense, all intents and purposes, I know it was still a defense that gave up like 500 yards of offense, but you held Tennessee to 34 points, which is the lowest point total they've had all season long. I know that's dumb to be like, well, good, you held them to their least, yet you still lost. I get it. But considering where you were, that's something that you're at least going to hold your hat on. But Steven Dix had 11 total tackles in this. Xavier Story had 8. You also had 1 tackle for loss for Steven Dix. And you had 2 half tackles for loss with Caleb Wooden and Quincy Rhodes. And 0 sacks. That's tough. Only 1 quarterback hurry, and that was by Cam Ball, ironically enough. So, yeah, you had this game, man. This game, which I know all of you have reflected on it, and you've talked to all your friends about it and everything. And I was we were doing our Inside Arkansas post-game show and live stream. And as soon as the game ended, I knew exactly how the fans were going to feel. It was going to be an extremely polarizing feeling. There were people that were going to be irate, saying same old, burn it down, loser mentality, blah, blah, blah. And then there was going to be the people that were, ever the optimist and thinking, hey, this team still did pretty well, though. And then it was going to be a fighting between the two of like, oh, you're the loser mentality, you're not the. And then there's the Bobby Petrino, anti-Bobby Petrino people coming in. I mean, it was exactly how I felt like it was going to be. And that's why I didn't pay too much of a mind to how people were going to feel after this game, because if you were someone who was mad at another one-possession loss, another self-inflicted wound game that ended up costing you because of your fumbles and everything like that, if you're someone who's pissed off about that, fine. I'm not going to argue with you about it. I'm not going to say you're dumb for being mad. You're dumb for being irate. You're dumb for thinking it's the same old, same old. I'm not going to argue with you on that. But that's not the take I'm getting. Okay? I got to be very clear in this, because people keep taking me into the things I put out on Twitter and my thoughts on this. They keep taking it out of the perspective it's supposed to be in. I am somewhat encouraged from what I saw on Saturday. It is not to say that I think Bobby Petrino's the guy. Again, we'll talk about him in a second. I'm not to say that, man, this team is about moral victories now. I'm not saying that. But I'm putting things into perspective, okay? We saw a team on Saturday, after going through 2 weeks of your head coach getting fired, your entire defensive staff getting wiped out, bringing in a few new faces in here to help, going against one of the best teams in the SEC, the best offense in the SEC, on the road in a hostile environment with a lot of newness, with a lot of uncertainty, with a lot of mystery, with a lot of people who have doubted you, a lot of you, your world isn't turned upside down. A lot of you have just, wondering what's going to be next, all the things together. And you did that. Considering the last time we saw you before this Tennessee game, you had mailed it in and given up. Somebody told me, he's like, I didn't see a team that gave up against Notre Dame. They gave up against Notre Dame. They gave up 42 points in the first half against Notre Dame. In front of the home crowd, acted like they didn't want to be there. And you know what happened? The head coach got fired because of that. Because they were no longer fighting for him. They were no longer playing for him. It seemed like Pittman was checked out from the jump. It was a very toxic, bad situation from top to bottom. And in the modern era of college football, when, there's this idea of all this selfishness about a lot of players. Oh, well, they're just making money now, so, they're just selfish and only thinking about themselves. Maybe in some cases that is right. Maybe there are some guys that feel that way. Maybe a lot of them do. But you know how easy it would have been for those players? Seriously. After all that happening, kind of to play victim on themselves, or just to look at it and be like, man, I'm out of this. I don't want to deal with this. I just get me through the season. I want out of this. Same thing with Petrino. Like, everybody could have easily just checked out, not cared. But they didn't. In 2 weeks' time, we saw a team that looked so disinterested and not caring to go through massive overhaul of changes to putting forth a performance to where they were in a position to possibly beat a top 10 level team on the road in the SEC. I'm sorry. I'm looking at that as a positive because it's a trajectory in the right direction. Some of you are going to say, well, it's another one possession loss. It's not all this. Okay, totally. But I'm looking at it from one game to the next, from what I saw the last week to what I saw this week. And it's night and day. That defense still is not great. We didn't think that they would be, but they gave up 34 points to Tennessee. 34 points when Arkansas had 4 turnovers in this game, or 3 turnovers in this game. 34 points. The number one offense. I'm taking it as a step in the right direction. Now, they got Texas A&M coming to town. They're undefeated and a top 5 team. They have other teams ahead. Auburn got a great defense. Not very good offensively, but great defense. Mississippi State's improved. Like, we know the schedule they have in front of them. If they keep doing these things, if they keep having these moments of shooting themselves in the foot under Bobby Petrino, under this new thing, then okay. We can just write it off and say, hey, it is what it is. It's just, this team's never going to change. It's just a culture thing. So let's blow this thing up and go. Totally understand it. Totally agree with it. Totally fine with it. But folks, there is nothing wrong with taking this into what it is right now. You can't change your team right now. You're not going to hire a head coach right now, permanently. You're not going to do these things right now. The season's going to play out, and the team has to have something to fight for. And I don't know about you, but I would rather have a team that at least is putting up that type of fight than a team that roll over and dies and looks like a Chad Morris team that's getting beat by 40. Give me what we saw on Saturday all day, every day. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't pretty. It has major problems that need to be fixed. But again, comparing it, contrasting it, and looking to the trajectory of it, I see it as a positive. And I'm wanting to see where this goes. I'm excited about the A&M game on Saturday. They may lose. They probably will lose. But if they got blown out by 40 to Tennessee, I really would not care about that A&M game. I wouldn't even want to be there. And probably most of you wouldn't either. You showed fight. You showed effort. Keep showing it. Clean up the mistakes and win yourself a dadgum game. I believe in you. I think you can do it. Just got to show it. Hopefully. We do got to talk about Bobby Petrino, because that's what this is, a lot of variables going into this. And we'll get to that next. So stay with us here on Locked On Razorbacks podcast. All right, Razorback fans, this episode is brought to you by Mazda's Moving the Game Forward. For those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. There are moments that do more than put points on the board. They move crowds, move culture, and keep moving the game forward. This week's moment that moved the game forward, honestly, was the performance by the Razorbacks and the spirit that they had. I know you're going to say that's cliche and that's lame, but it's true. This team was dead in the water. They rose, they fought, they got after it, and honestly had one of their better defensive performances over the past 3 games, which isn't saying much, but it was. Man, just would have been nice for them to come up with a turnover. But either way, when you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, there's always more to a Mazda vehicle. So it's Mazda, move and be moved. All right, so moving on into the next segment of the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. So I know a lot of you are talking about the coaching search and all of that. And, we're going to continue to update our voting that a lot of you have been a part of with Inside Arkansas. So I'm pretty excited to see how that goes and how that turns out. But I was all about Bobby Petrino, as you all know. And I was wanting to see what it looked like. I wanted to see how this would go in this particular situation against a team like Tennessee. And for Bobby, it's like if I was going to give him a grade, I was going to give him a B plus. Truly. Given the circumstances. Now, in the game against Tennessee, He even admitted he should have just kicked the field goal in that situation instead of going for it on fourth down. And that was a brutal thing. Take the points. I was in that camp, and this is not even just a Bobby Petrino thing. I was this way with Sam Pittman too. I'm in the camp of, if you make calls like that, there's certain moments, obviously, where it calls for it. But it's always about those calls working, and then they become the greatest call ever. But if they fail miserably, it's a stupid thing. Think about like that fake field goal that Arkansas did with Blake Kern and I think it was Devin Bale. Was it Devin Bale? I can't remember. Either way, it was against Alabama back in 2021 when Arkansas was on the road and they're lining up to kick a field goal, and they did that fake, and Blake Kern had that great catch and ran down the field and scored a touchdown. It was awesome, wasn't it? What if it didn't work? What if that pass, which was behind Blake Kern, mind you, what if he just didn't get to it? You would have been pissed. You would have been yelling. It would have been awful, terrible. That was the stupidest call ever. But when it works, it's always brilliant. And that's how I felt about that fourth down call. When I was sitting there, I was like, I'd take the field goal. But I also understand, you're on the road. You want to get aggressive. You want to get that spark. And obviously, Bobby Petrino is a very confident play caller. So he rolled it out there. Apparently, Raylan Sharp was wide open on the play, but they just went to the wrong side. It's unfortunate, but it happens. So, did Bobby Petrino, because really this is the question, did Bobby Petrino do anything on Saturday to make you or me, any of us, change our minds about him as the head coach permanently? Because that's what he's trying to do. He's got this audition tape. He lost the game. He's 0-1. Did he do anything to make you or me change our minds about Bobby? Me personally, no. Again, I gave Bobby a positive grade. I'm encouraged and was encouraged by what I saw. But I'm a realist, folks. Like, there was nothing about that game where I'm like, Bobby deserves the job. Now, here's the thing. If you're anti-Bobby Petrino being the permanent head coach, that's fine. That's fine. If you're pro Bobby Petrino being the head coach right now permanently, just sign him on. That's fine too. Because as I've told you before, when it comes to your coaching searches and who you want, pick who you want. Don't be angry about it. Don't be mean about it if someone says, I don't know about that. Have your guy and move on, though. But thing is whether you're in the anti-Bobby or the pro-Bobby, he wasn't going to get fired after one game, and he's not getting condemned after one game, and he wasn't going to get the job permanently after one game. We have a 7-game stretch here, a full body of work, a good size sample to see what he can do. And in one game, he is 0-1, but in one game, he got the team to play harder than they did when he was not the head coach, and they did improve. So that's fine. It's fine. Now, if he goes against Texas A&M this Saturday, and again, Texas A&M is a really good team. So I'm not going to sit there and be like, Bobby better win or else. But if Arkansas puts forth another really good effort and gives Texas A&M all they want, and it also depends on what they do. Is it more self-inflicting wounds, and that maybe changes things? But if it's just actually a good, well-played game by Arkansas and they just come up short, I don't think that's going to condemn Bobby either. He's got to win games. You can't go 0-7 and get the job. You can't go 1-6 and get the job. I think he knows that. You got to win multiple games in this stretch. But folks, it's okay to just kind of wait and see how it's going to play out, because no matter what happens, Bobby Petrino is your coach for the next 6 games. You wanted Pittman change, and he got changed. They're not going to fire the interim coach in the middle of the season. That's dumb. They're not going to do it. So just let it play out. See where it goes. Who knows? Maybe it goes someplace really great. Maybe it doesn't. But no matter what, the choices will be made. The impact will be had. We'll see the sample size. But I'm still a Bobby guy. Still rooting for him. Not saying he's not my number one choice to be the head coach permanently, but I'm rooting for him. And I want to see how the rest of this plays out. And that's okay. I'll tell you what's not okay. The craziness going on in college football right now. More coaching, huge coaching news going on. So we'll get to that. So stay with us here on Locked On Razorbacks podcast. All right, Razorback fans, we know the NFL season and college football season's in full swing, and FanDuel has an offer that you do not want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the entire app. It makes watching football that much more exciting when you've got a little bit something right on the action, and whether it's for a casual fan or diving into the stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the app today with FanDuel and get started. Also presented by our friends over at Monarch Money. Most people can't name their financial accounts or even what they're worth. Whether it's 401ks or properties or investments, when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. But that's why there is Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or on your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you've put off organizing your finances, Monarch is just for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all of your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever using a spreadsheet. You can identify the places that you aren't saving as much money as you thought you were, and they're going to help you notice an inefficient investment allocation and discover forgotten 401ks from past jobs. So don't let the financial opportunity slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONCollege. All right, so final segment here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. I know that Arkansas is going through a coaching change, and we all know about that. But the thing is when Arkansas made the move, one of the things that always pops into people's minds, Razorback fans' minds, or just fans in general, is about, well, okay, so who are we going to be competing against when it comes to these jobs? What other jobs are going to open up? What problems are going to be arising? And you kind of had an idea of which positions were going to be open. And some of them, like Oklahoma State with Mike Gundy wasn't the most shocking thing, but it was still pretty man, that's crazy. And then you had the Oregon State coach get fired. Virginia Tech's coach got fired. UCLA's coach got fired. So you had Trent Dilfer even get fired over at UAB. But the one that was truly insane that happened yesterday was James Franklin from Penn State getting fired. I know that they had a rough start to the season. I know they lost to UCLA, and that was brutal. That team was in the semifinals of the playoffs last year. That team was a top 10 team just 3 weeks ago, where they had College Game Day there at Happy Valley just 3 weeks ago. And he loses a few games. He shouldn't have lost. They were bad losses. Don't get me wrong. They lost to Northwestern. They lost to UCLA. And you fired him. $49 million is what he is owed. You fired a coach that literally has had his only losing record was in 2020 as a coach, head coach. 2020 during the COVID year when he played in a Big Ten only schedule, and he went 4-5. That was the only losing season he had. This dude has had 9 9-win seasons as a head coach. He's had, I believe, 6 11-win seasons. 6. And you fired him. Okay, Penn State. You better have somebody truly incredible. Because I'm telling you right now, again, I don't know where Arkansas is going to go. But if you told me, being honest, if you told me that Arkansas hired James Franklin, I'm pumped. I'm pumped. He's a great coach. People are like, oh, well, look at his record in those top 25. I don't care. The guy wins everywhere he goes. He got Vanderbilt to back-to-back 9-win seasons during the time when the SEC was almost at its peak. And at Penn State, he's been nothing but consistent when it comes to winning. Yeah, he hasn't been perfect, but the guy's a winner. He was in the playoffs last year in the semifinals a year ago. Yeah, I think he's a pretty good coach. Not saying he's my number one choice, but if you told me that Arkansas was going to hire him, no complaints from me. Somebody's going to get a great coach. There's going to be a lot of places that probably end up getting good coaches, and a lot of places are going to regret end up firing the coaches that they did. So either way, it's going to be crazy. We'll see how it all plays out. But appreciate each and every one of you listening in and watching in to the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or on Google Play. You can also get after me on Twitter, John Nabors Show, for any questions, comments, concerns you may have. We'll keep it going from there. Same podcast time, same podcast channel tomorrow afternoon. Have a great day, everybody. See you then.